Welcome back to the deep dive. So, usually when we sit down to unravel a big systemic failure,
Mm,
whether it's an education crisis or, I don't know, a labor dispute, we're always looking at the same kind of stuff.
right. Budget reports, government white papers, that kind of thing.
So much jargon, so dry, and honestly, not a lot of soul.
It's always very clinical. We're looking at graphs to understand, human suffering.
Exactly. But today's different. It's actually a little weird for us because our source isn't a spreadsheet,
No,
it's a poem.
it is. And I have to say, it's a pretty fascinating pivot.
The piece is called The Ballad of the Development Officers by Weerathunga W Nimal. Now, before you think we've gone all literary on you, just stick with us.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just a poem, it's like a whistleblower complaint and an economic manifesto all rolled into one.
It really is. It's amazing how efficient poetry can be at getting to the truth. We talk about narrative economics, how stories drive policy. And this source, it just strips away all the spin and gets right to the ugly machinery of how a state can exploit its own graduates.
It really does. And it all centers on this one very specific title, the development officer. I mean, just hearing that, development officer, it sounds important, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds like someone in a big office, planning things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. But that's the trap.
That is exactly the noble name the poem refers to later on. The reality the source describes is, well, it's something else entirely,
It's a euphemism.
completely. In this context, it's a title given to university graduates who were hired not to develop anything, but to plug holes.
Specifically holes in classrooms.
That's it.
So, okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about people who went to university, got their degree, did everything right.
hmm
And then what? The poem starts with this really heartbreaking image. It says, they came with books and folded dreams, degrees held tight like maps.
And that image, degrees held tight like maps, is so crucial.
It really is.
Think about what a map is. A map promises a destination. You follow the path, you get the degree, and you arrive somewhere.
At a career, at some stability.
That's the social contract, right? But for these graduates, the map lied.
Yeah. The poem says they weren't called to power or to praise. They were called into system cracks.
System cracks. It's such a visceral phrase. This isn't a career path. It's fissure filling. They're not building the wall. They're just being shoved into the cracks to stop it from falling down.
And the source gets very specific about the economics of this. It just drops this number that is, it's just startling. 20,000 coins a month.
20,000. And, I mean, you don't even need to do a currency conversion to get what that means.
No, the context makes it so clear. This is survival money. It's poverty wages.
And the comparison the poet makes is what really drives the knife in. It says they are standing where the teachers stood. So physically, they're in the exact same spot.
At the chalkboard,
Okay.
doing the work.
But on thinner coins than paid.
That's the heart of the exploitation right there. You've got a two-tiered system inside the same school.
Yeah. You have the teacher with a capital T, with the salary, the pension, all of it. And then right next to them, doing the exact same work.
Is the development officer for a fraction of the cost?
It's basically the gig economy, but for state education.
They have like Uber for teaching.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
The poem says they have chalk dust on borrowed hands.
Borrowed hands, like they don't even own their own role.
They don't. They're
Yep.
patched into the plans. It's temporary. It's precarious. They're just spare part.
And the machine itself is falling apart. The source explains why they're even there in the first place. It says, retired teachers faded out. No new ones took their place.
So just think about the negligence there. The trained professional teachers retired. They left.
And the system just didn't replace them.
The poem says the gate stayed shut to trained intent.
Right.
So they closed the door on hiring actual professionals. And instead, they opened the gate to haste.
They just mass hired these graduates because they were cheap and available.
And you could hide them in the budget under a different name.
And the scale of this is... Wow. There's this one stanza that describes some old schools where there's just one principal to steer the ship, the rest temporary bred.
Can you imagine that your kid's school has one permanent employee, the principal, and everyone else is a temp making poverty wages?
It's a hollow school system. It looks like a school, but structurally, it's about to collapse.
These officers are filling empty chairs, doing the work, but without any of the status or security that you need for quality education.
Okay, so we've established the what graduates being exploited to prop up schools, but let's get to the why. Because a system this broken doesn't just happen by accident, does it?
Oh, absolutely not. And this is where the poem really pivots from, an economic critique to a political takedown. It says the people who wrote the rules were counting political error.
Political air. I love that phrase. It sounds like something, but it's empty.
It's all about patronage. The poem is explicit. It says, votes were grown from hunger's soil.
Oof. That is a dark line.
It is. The argument here is that the previous government, the ones who set this all up, knew exactly what they were doing.
How so?
Well, you've got a huge population of unemployed graduates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And from a political science view, that's a dangerous group for any government.
They're educated, they're vocal, they're restless.
Exactly. So you had to co-opt them. You give them a job, not a good job. You can't afford that.
Right.
So you give them a fancy title, development officer. And the poem calls this cheap labor wore a noble name. You buy their loyalty with fear and fragile pay.
It's a classic patronage trap. You hire 50,000 people, and that's maybe 50,000 families who now owe you their vote no matter how little you pay them.
Precisely. The poem calls it dignity delayed. You keep them just hungry enough to need you, but just employed enough not to rebel. It's incredibly cynical.
But then the plot thickens. The timeline in the poem moves forward. It says time turned. The banners changed their hue.
Right, a new government comes in. The regime changes.
And people expect things to get better overnight. Okay, the bad guys are out, now fix it.
But the source is very clear about what that new government walked into.
Total ruin.
Yeah. The poem describes the coffers as echoing bare.
So not just empty, echoing.
It's a fantastic image. The land is wounded. There are floods. There's debt in every prayer. It's a multi-layered crisis.
So the new government is standing there with rubble in its hands, trying to rebuild with nothing but promises and plans.
Exactly. And this is where the central conflict kicks in. Yeah. You have these exploited officers who have a totally legitimate grievance.
Absolutely.
And you have a new government that is completely broke. And then a third player enters the arena.
The unions.
Or, as the source calls them, the ghostly unions.
That's a really specific, almost ominous phrase. Why ghostly?
The implication is that they were dead, or at least silent before. When the previous government, the one that actually built this exploitative system, was in power, where were they? They weren't striking then.
But now, they rise again.
And the poem is deeply skeptical about their motives. It says they're wearing colors lost to polls.
Which suggests they're aligned with the party that just lost the election.
That's the argument, yes. That this sudden wave of strikes isn't just about labor rights. It might be about political revenge.
It says the unrest is not for the child nor for the class, but fallen leaders' roles. I mean, that is a heavy, heavy accusation.
It's saying this is about destabilizing the new government, not helping the workers.
It's the weaponization of a real grievance.
And that's the real tragedy here. The grievance is 100% real. These workers should be angry. They should demand better pay.
But the poem suggests their rightful pain is being turned into a tool for someone else's hand.
It's a terrible position to be in. You're underpaid, you're struggling, and now you're being used as a pawn in a bigger power game.
And the poem warns against this. It says, beware this road. It argues that when the school bells stop ringing, the nation pays the price in broken years.
Broken years. Not broken budgets, broken years. That really hits home.
It does.
It's the idea of time decay in education. You can print more money. You can rebuild a road. You can't give a child back the year of school they missed. That's a permanent scar.
And there's this one stanza that I think is the real philosophical anchor of the whole piece. It says, justice delayed is justice scarred, but chaos heals no wrong.
It's a plea for nuance, isn't it? It acknowledges the workers are victims, justice scarred, but it argues that burning the house down isn't the solution.
Chaos heals no wrong.
Destruction isn't a valid form of negotiation when the person you're negotiating with is already standing in the rubble of the house.
And then it delivers this metaphor that I think we really need to dig into. It says, a country cannot climb from pits if every rope is song.
If every rope is song, it's beautiful, but it's just scathing.
Unpack that for us.
Okay, so you're in a pit.
Yeah.
An economic depression. To get out, you need ropes. You need structure, labor, production. It's actual, tangible things.
And a song. A song is just air.
A song is a slogan, a protest chant. The poem is saying you cannot climb out of an economic hole using only slogans. If you grab onto a song to pull yourself up, you're just going to fall right back down.
That is a harsh thing to say to people who are desperate.
It is incredibly harsh.
Mm.
But the source frames it as a necessary reality check. If the treasury is empty, screaming louder won't fill it. It's a critique of performative protest when there's no pragmatic plan attached.
So where does that leave everyone? The poem seems to be yelling at everybody at once.
It is. It's an ethical standoff. To the new government, the message is clear. Pay what is fair, admit the fault, repair what pride ignored.
So no excuses. You can't just say we're broke. You have to fix this.
Exactly. You have to admit the system is broken and find a way to pay these people what they're worth.
But, and this is the big pivot, it also speaks directly to the workers and the unions.
It does. It says, do not burn the fragile bridge. The future must cross forward.
And that fragile bridge is the education system itself.
Yes, the stability of the nation. The argument is, if you shut down the schools indefinitely, there is no future to cross into. You might win the political battle, but you inherit a graveyard.
Which brings us to the ultimate victim here, because while all the adults are fighting, who is sitting on the sidelines?
The children. The poem just states it plainly. Children wait to learn. And then it delivers its most devastating line. The gravest crime is not low pay, but lessons left unearned.
Wow. That reframes everything. It says that denying a child an education is a worse moral crime than underpaying a worker.
It forces you to look at this whole dispute not through the lens of labor versus capital, but through the lens of the student.
Right.
When the school becomes a battlefield, the real casualty isn't a government's polling numbers, it's a child's entire future.
You know, it's fascinating how this poem manages to feel empathy for everyone, but it's also critical of everyone.
It's a call for maturity, really. It's asking for a de-escalation. It's saying, look, the house is on fire. Can we stop arguing about who lit the match and just get the kids out?
And it reframes the role of the development officer, doesn't it? They start as victims, but the poem's challenging them not to become
Victimizers of the next generation. That's the journey they're on. They came in with maps, wanting to be guides. The system turned them into stopgaps.
And now other forces want to turn them into battering rams.
And the poem is pleading with them to just be the teachers they were meant to be. Don't let the school bells cease.
It's a lot to ask of someone who can barely afford their bus fare.
It is an immense amount to ask.
Right.
And that's why it's a tragedy. A ballad is a sad song, and this one fits perfectly. There are no good options, only less bad ones.
And the absolute worst option is to stop the kids from learning.
That's the gravest crime.
You know, usually when we finish one of these, I feel smarter. Today, I just feel heavier.
I think that's the point. A white paper tells you the budget deficit is 5%. Only a poem can tell you what dignity delayed feels like.
So here we are, a system built on political error, running on borrowed hands, and facing a crisis where every rope is song.
It's an incredibly precarious moment. And for you listening, the takeaway isn't just about this one country. It's about how fragile our own public institutions are. When we let essential services like education become tools for political patronage, we plant a seed. And eventually that seed grows into the chaos we see in this poem.
Votes were grown from hunger's soil.
Uh,
If there's one line to take away from this, maybe that's it. You can't build a stable society on the desperation of your youth.
and you can't heal it by burning down the bridges.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we're left with that image of the open gate to haste and the closed gate to intent.
And the silence of a school bell.
Right. I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. The poem warns that a country can't climb from a pit if every rope is song. In our own lives, in our own politics, how often do we mistake the song for the rope? How often do we mistake the slogan for the solution? And when that rope inevitably snaps, who's the one that's actually falling?
Usually it's the ones who haven't learned how to climb yet.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye.